Hey, what's up, folks? What's going on? Welcome to episode number 80 of the Spun Today Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Ortiz. Thank you very much for listening. This episode is brought to you in part by Amazon. If you want to help support the podcast, you can do so by going to spuntoday.com and clicking on the affiliate links tab up at the top. On that tab, you'll see an Amazon banner. Click on it and do your Amazon shopping like you normally do. It won't cost you anything extra, but it will help support the podcast. In this episode, I speak about the KOTD Rap Battle MASS3 event, watching two movies, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Girls Trip. I also speak about the protests in Charlottesville, Virginia, over the removal of a statue that was memorializing the Confederacy's top general, Robert E. Lee. I then speak about Solar Eclipse 2017, and lastly, the bout between Mayweather and McGregor. So stick around, got some dope shit in this episode. Alright, so first off, I fell off a little bit from like the whole rap battle scene. I see some sporadically still, I watch them, but I've been out of the loop for a couple months. And I came back to a bunch of good battles, actually. The first thing that caught my eye was and I like the concept of this, because it builds up like the momentum and excitement of the genre, as well as hyping up the next battle, because I want to see like the full version of. It's something called a secret battle, where it's one of their events. It's like a pay-per-view event, similar to, let's say, like a UFC has a pay-per-view event, right? And they have a headliner, the main event, and then the co-main event, and then they have a bunch of other like fights underneath. The rap battles are following like that same formula, that same format. So there's a bunch of battles on the card and the main event, etc. But they introduced something called a secret battle. And this is the first time that I saw it. I'm not sure if it was the introductory, first time for them actually doing it. But it's where nobody knows who they are. It's two battle rappers, obviously, and they go on stage. They have masks on. They darken the room until they're on the stage, and then when they're on the stage, they bring the lights back up and they take off the masks, and you see who they are. And it was cool. Everybody got excited, especially because it was like two big names, and it was Disaster and Hollow the Dawn. And what's cool is that it's only a 1-round battle. So each one gets a turn, and 1-round battles are common, but not in this way. This was a 1-round battle that's like a preview, if you will, to a full battle. They're going to have a full battle, which is 3 rounds. So, each one takes a turn, back and forth, for a total of three rounds. But this is a 1-rounder and serves as a preview, and I thought it was pretty cool. It built up the excitement. It was, two of the top tier battle rappers in the game, and it was pretty dope. I like that. And what else? On MASS3, which is the name of the event, which, if I'm not mistaken, is KOTD's biggest event. It's like their, I don't know if you're into like pro wrestling or something. It's like their SummerSlam or Royal Rumble or whatever the fuck, or it's like their Super Bowl event, and it's like their big card. Basically, they had another dope battle, which was Pat Stay versus Big K, and I gave it to Big K, mainly because Pat Stay slipped up a bit, and K was more aggressive, like he usually is, and Pat was funnier, like he usually is. And it was a dope battle, though. It was enjoyable. The other one that I liked that I saw, which I also liked, was Arsonal versus Iron Solomon. Iron Solomon is one of the OGs, and Arsonal at this point is as well. But Iron is like one of my favorites from back in the day when I first started watching battle rap. He was like one of the GOATs back then. And he recently came back, it's probably like his 4th battle back after like a many year retirement hiatus type of thing, because he went to go pursue recorded music, or try to pursue that full time, I guess, or whatever. It was good. It was a good battle. I give it to Arsonal, though. I thought his performance was better. There was no slip-ups or chokes on his part, and he's kind of known to slip up and choke when, it's a big stage, a big battle. Not every time, but frequently enough that if it happened, you wouldn't be surprised. Iron was good. Wordplay, bananas, as usual, but a touch too verbose. Like, a lot of shit went over my head. It's the type that you would have to, like, listen to again to get, and, in the moment, it's like, you're not going to do that. So I probably edge it to Arsonal. And it's actually Arsenal's second to last battle. He's apparently retiring from battle rap, and his last battle is going to be against Loaded Lux. That should be a really, really, really good one. I'll link to each of these battles separately in the episode notes, or if you want to go to spuntoday.com/podcast/80 or 080, you can see all the episode notes there. Or, if you're just listening to this on your iPhone or Android or whatever app you use to listen to podcasts, it'll be right there in the episode notes for you to check them out. If you're not into battle rap or whatever, then obviously don't check them out. But I would say just look at the first 2 or 3 minutes of the Disaster versus Haldadon battle. That's the one that I said had that new cool twist to it with the secret battle thing, and I thought that was dope. So just check that out and see what you think about that. Yo, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was really good. It was entertaining to watch. It was funny. It was a good movie. And honestly, I don't remember much of the first one. Much at all. I remember the characters, but I don't remember, the storyline. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but I remember thinking that it was a decent movie too. I didn't not like it. But obviously it wasn't memorable for me. Or something's wrong with my fucking memory. The Groot, the little baby Groot, stole the movie. And his intro, the intro of the movie, starts off with him, and spoiler alert, and dancing around and stuff like that to some of Chris Pratt's music that he likes, some 80s or 90s or whatever, some old school music. And Groot is dancing to it while they're fighting some big blob thing from outer space, and he's fucking adorable. It was so funny and cute and whatever, that I wound up buying a Funko Pop doll of little baby Groot, which is dope and funny. But yeah, it was an entertaining watch. I enjoyed it. Girls Trip, I went to go see at the movie theater, and that shit was hilarious. Every time there's, for example, Bridesmaids was the last, I guess, girl movie, if you want to call it that I saw that I thought was super funny like that. And prior to Bridesmaids, the movie that, when Bridesmaids came out, the movie that it was compared to was The Hangover, but the girl version of. And I thought it was, like a stretch or whatever until I saw it. And in terms of funniness, it was up there. It was definitely up there, and it was funny as hell. It's a really, really good movie. So when Girls Trip came out, it was kind of sold as funny as Bridesmaids, but it was the black version. And I held Bridesmaids up there in terms of funny. So I kind of thought it was just a gimmick selling tactic or whatever, but I liked everybody in it. Queen Latifah's in it, Jada Pinkett, Regina Hall, and Tiffany Haddish are all in it, all stars in their own right. And they came together. The chemistry between them was off the hook. The story was cool. Regina Hall's a writer, which was like extra cool for me personally. And had its like touching, moments, and just like funny throughout like the whole thing. Tiffany Haddish absolutely stole the movie, and it's really cool because I like recently got into Tiffany Haddish when I got into the Carmichael show, as well as I saw like a bunch of interviews with her like on The Breakfast Club when around that time, and a few other interviews she did. Tony Rock's podcast with Lil Rel on it as well. And she had done like back in the day before I knew who she was. I knew she was a stand-up comic and a Comedy Store comic because I had heard her on like the Ice House Chronicles, in the green room of the comedy of the Ice House, and like stuff like that. And I grew to like her, so I wanted like this movie to be good that much more, and it absolutely was. Like, it literally was laugh out loud funny. Like, I was in the movie theater laughing out loud. It's a quote unquote black movie, I guess because the majority of the cast is black, and so the majority of the people that are not so, but the majority of the people that are watching it were also black. And the stereotype of black people, when they watch movies, they talk through them and laugh out loud and like stuff like that. That's true. And so I don't know if that had something to do with me laughing out loud like in the movie theater, but regardless, it was just fucking hilarious. And Tiffany Haddish actually has a comedy special out on Showtime, if I'm not mistaken, which I have not seen yet, but I plan to, and I'll tell you guys about it when I do. But regardless of all that, Girls Trip is also killing it in the box office. I think it's grossed like over 100 million as of the date that I'm recording this podcast, which is August 22nd, 2017. So that's dope, man. It's really, really good for them. All right, now Charlottesville, Virginia had some protests by some white nationalist Nazi fucks that by now I'm sure you all have heard were thugging it out with their tiki torches, Polynesian quote unquote tiki torches from Home Depot that they purchased. There's several important takeaways, at least in my opinion, from what happened in Charlottesville. First and foremost, someone died. A 32-year-old white woman was killed because a 20-year-old protester, white kid, that apparently couldn't manifest his emotions in any other way, decided to get into his car and run over a group of people that were protesting against the white nationalist protesters. He was later arrested and sentenced with charged with second-degree murder, which again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, like the degrees and technically this, technically that, a piece of shit like that should just get literally like, I don't know, send him to like Kim Jong-un now and let him like sick the dogs that he used to kill his uncle or some shit on this fucking retard that killed a woman as well as injured 19 others. Also, which has gotten like less coverage, 2 police officers were killed in a helicopter crash outside of Charlottesville because they were monitoring. It was because of the protest. They were monitoring the protest from above. Our orange, not so much in the closet anymore, neo-Nazi president has been deservingly criticized for not immediately saying that what the white nationals are like preaching and doing and saying, and that the acts that transpired in Charlottesville should be condemned, etc., etc. His take on the whole shit was that there was blame to go around on all sides because there were the protesters that were there, and then the anti-protesters, people that were against these like Nazis or whatever you want to call them, or white nationalists rather, because I do get like the argument for like not calling them Nazis because they're, well, I actually no. Well, the argument is, not to throw around the word Nazi too much because you water down the word, and then when it actually really should apply, it doesn't really mean what it, it doesn't have like that oomph behind it. But these are, like neo-Nazi wannabe fucks. They're protesting the removal of a statue that was in the center of a town hall across the street from a courthouse. And the statue was, or is rather, of the Confederacy's top general, Robert E. Lee. So Robert E. Lee was the head of the Confederate Army, which was the Army of the South that fought against the North during the Civil War. And they were fighting mainly, regardless of how you window dress it, to keep slavery going. So the statue in the middle of the town, in front of a courthouse, memorializing him, is understandably disturbing. Clearly not to all, but to some. The best way I could describe it is by paraphrasing a woman that testified in front of Charlottesville's city council when they were deciding if they were going to take the statue down or not. And she said something to the effect of, imagine that you had an oppressor, your family, your parents, your great-grandparents, for generations had this oppressor that beat and raped and just diminished your existence in that way, tortured your family for years and years and years, 400 years. And they had a statue of this person, this entity, this being, or of that ideology, because that's what it becomes after that amount of time, right? In the center of the city where you live. Like, that has to fuck with you. I added the "it has to fuck with you" part. So the story of why it was decided to get taken off is something that resonated with me, because it's I guess like a silver lining, like a small positive not in what happened, obviously, because this predates what happened, but just in the system as a whole, the political system as a whole. A young girl in college, a college student, petitioned the city council by gathering hundreds of signatures in favor of taking down that statue. Now, it's not the first statue that has been taken down. There have been several other Confederate memorializing statues taken down throughout the South in similar manners, and like Confederate flags that were hoisted on government buildings and stuff like that. And I'm sure you guys will like remember that controversy. And this is one that was petitioned by a college student, a citizen saw something that she didn't like, decided to collect some signatures, take it to the city council, voice her opinion, and it worked. The city council heard her and the clear leverage that she had and the hundreds of signatures of potential voters that can vote them in or out of office. So they have to, pay attention in that sense. And they created a committee to review the situation and eventually voted to remove the statue. And they voted to remove the statue in February, but by March, before the statue could be removed, March 2017, they were hit with a lawsuit stating that under state law, they could not remove the statue. So the tensions continued to develop in Charlottesville And this eventual protest, as kind of like a last stand to stop the statue from getting taken down, this process is a result of that, right? And in terms of the statue in and of itself getting taken down, I was kind of torn on that, because part of me is like, you can't rewrite history. You can't, and you shouldn't want to. You shouldn't want to, sugarcoat and erase the past and, for generations moving forward, act as if certain things didn't exist. We have enough whitewashing of history where, stories of minorities aren't told to the same degree that stories of whites are, for example. And we don't want to now add another layer of, pussifying history or sugarcoating it, or, super PCing it. History's history. It's what happened. We need to be reminded of what happened. We shouldn't forget what happens to avoid it happening again. So there's a part of me that's like, it's, statues shouldn't just be taken down in a way that you're going to erase and forget about history. Then there's another part of me that hears what that woman that petitioned the city council says, and is like, yeah, absolutely, you have 1,000% point. I wouldn't want to see a statue of someone that, potentially raped my grandmother or great grandmother or mother or whomever. I wouldn't want that, a statue like that, in a glorifying, memorializing type of way. Also, it's kind of like, what the fuck, when I'm like taking the bus to go to work or whatever. So I get that side of it too. Now, what I didn't know is that the statues, this is what I was getting to before I cut myself off. The statues weren't being taken down or wasn't going to be taken down and melted and thrown away. They're being relocated to museums, like a museum setting where the actual story of slavery can be told in its full context, not just a statue, smack dab in the middle of the city on this pedestal, but in the true context of who Robert E. Lee was and what he supported and what he was behind. And that is, I think, a great reconciliation of at least my cognitive dissonance that I was having with that situation. It kind of corrects for the issue of not erasing history, and corrects for the issue of not being insensitive to those that are hurt by the statue. Because again, like, just taking stuff down and acting as if it never happened kind of reminds me of the movie. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, Thank You for Smoking, and if you haven't seen it, you should. It's a really good movie. But there was a senator there from Wisconsin that was hell-bent on he was super anti-cigarette, and he went so far as to want to take classic movies like Casablanca and stuff like that and superimpose pictures of like a coffee or a candy cane in place of where cigarettes, where the actors were like smoking and shit. And stuff like that is like ridiculous, I think. But this other way, this way of creating some sort of museum to tell that statue's history in its full context is, I think, a brilliant idea. So then our president is asked about this situation in Charlottesville. And his take on it is that there was a lot of blame to go around on all sides. You had the protesters that were there, quote unquote, legally with a permit, and the anti-protesters that were there antagonizing and didn't, quote unquote, did not have a permit. They were not there legally. First off, that's 100% wrong and incorrect. In the episode notes, if you want to check it out, I link to several articles from the Washington Post, Snopes, PolitiFact, etc., corroborating an earlier story that the quote-unquote other group was there legally. They did have permits. And in one of the articles, there's one that goes as far as saying that technically the white nationalist group didn't have a permit to be in the exact location that they were. They had a permit for like the adjacent park or whatever. But that's a bit of a reach. Point is, they were all there legally. They were all exercising their right under peaceful is kind of a stretch when you're spewing hate speech, but to peaceful assembly and freedom of speech under the First Amendment. The moment some dickhead gets in his car and decides that it's a good idea for whatever reason, even if he had some altruistic, weird ass rationale that, you know, he saw someone that was on fire and the only way to put the fire out and save that person was to get in his car and hit them. Literally, no matter what's going on, no matter what the situation, the moment he decides to get in his car and run over dozens of people, not even factoring the fact that he injured 19 and killed one, that's wrong. That's not okay. There's no scenario where that's going to be a tolerable act. We already know that 6 months in, Trump isn't an effective president. But his response to what happened in Charlottesville spoke more to who he is as a person and as a leader than I think anything that he's done to date. You know, all the pussy grabbing statements and the self-aggrandizing and lies and bullshit. This did more than anything prior, in my opinion. The moment your initial immediate gut reaction as a president is not to speak up against those acts, you're emboldening more of those acts. You're creating more of a volatile situation in a country that's already seeing a larger divide than in years past, and where racial tensions are percolating. You're literally feeding that type of behavior. Vice did, and this shit has like a ripple effect. Vice did a piece on some German protests where the acts of Charlottesville had neo-Nazis doing like some yearly protest that they have, or the yearly march that they have. They were emboldened by the acts of Charlottesville. I just don't get how someone's ego and narcissism and like is like greater than the regard for others or the well-being of the country as a whole and even the world even. Like, the presidency of the United States can't even humble this motherfucker. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Trump is my president. He's our president in that we voted him into office, and I believe in the political system. You know, it's broken and needs updating, and I believe in following the process that we have in place and working from within to build it out, etc. But he's my president in the way that any man can be a daddy, but not necessarily a father. You know, like a deadbeat dad kind of thing. He's a deadbeat president. He's my president in the way that a druggy sibling that steals and beats family members is only a sibling by blood and nothing else. You know what I mean? It's like, you're technically our president, motherfucker, but you're not our president. You don't represent us. And the funny thing is that you don't even represent them, do you? You are placating and emboldening this base that got you elected, but it's all for personal gain. I know your type. I know, like, firsthand the cloth that you're cut from. The moment that it's not beneficial for you to continue propping up these white nationalist whack jobs. You'll flip on them like that. Probably around when it gets closer to election time and shit like that. Wouldn't be surprised. Re-election time, if you don't quit before then, because there's bitch in you. It's just sad. It really does seem like a sad existence. But rest in peace to those that lost their lives in Charlottesville. Fuck you to those that preach or boast or embolden the violent acts. On a lighter note, America went dark for part of the day the other day. Eclipse 2017. I think it was called. I read in a couple places it being referenced to as the Great American Eclipse. It's, I'm not sure if that was the official name for it, but at least on NASA's website, it's called the 2017 eclipse. Eclipse 2017. And it's not that eclipses are so rare. They happen like every few years, but this particular type of eclipse that you could see, that I guess maybe this is why they're referencing as the Great American Eclipse, that it was going from one side of the U.S. to the other, and could be seen, across the entire U.S. from Oregon down to, I think, South Carolina. Like, it took that trajectory from like coast to coast. That type of eclipse happens more sporadically, just to give you an idea. This one happened in 2017. And the next one is supposed to be in 2024. And then the one after that is supposed to be in 2049. And it was a Tuesday. Not a Tuesday. Today's Tuesday, August 22nd, when I'm recording this. And the eclipse was yesterday, August 21st, 2017. And I was at work, and they reached New York. I was like I had YouTube playing on one of my screens, one of the corners of my screens, and I watched when it passed. Somebody was live streaming, and I watched when it passed Wyoming, I want to say. Yeah, it was Wyoming. And it was pretty cool. And then when it got to around New York, which was around like 2 o'clock-ish, 2:20-ish, and we couldn't see anything. We saw, we're in the city, so a lot of tall buildings. Don't really see the sun. But we saw it getting a little darker, at least by the windows that were on my side of the building. And then we found out that on the other side of the office, somebody had brought one of those glasses that looked like those 3D 80s glasses from back in the day. And that the sun was like directly overhead on the left side of the building. So pretty much everybody in the office went over there and took turns sharing the glasses, which are really cool. Super dark. You couldn't see shit with them. They were pitch black dark, darker than limo tints type dark. And the sun was right there directly overhead. Put the glasses on, look up, and you see it very, very clearly. As clearly as all the pictures that I'm sure you guys are tired and sick of seeing already. But it was a pretty cool experience, especially since it was unexpected to actually see it. I thought I would just see pictures after it happened and try to see if somebody got a dope image from a telescope or something like that and streamed it online. And somebody brought those glasses into the office, and they actually work, which was cool, because I thought it was just bullshit, who the hell's mass producing these bad boys that they got around so fast in time for the eclipse. But they actually worked, and it was pretty cool. Vice also did with, I think it was, I want to say Hamilton Morris, in the Vice weekly news show that they do Monday to Thursday. They had a segment on the eclipse on Monday, and they showed it in a cool way for, it was probably a 5 to 10 minute piece, and it was dope. They did a really good job of it. It's called the corona, apparently, when the moon completely covers the sun and you just see the sides of the sun behind the moon, just like radiating outwardly. And like they showed that on the Vice piece, and that was pretty dope. But yeah, that was the Eclipse 2017. Money May versus Mystic Mac. That's it. The time is here. The time has arrived. It is the biggest fight, potentially going to be the biggest fight in combat sports history, the biggest money generator ever in combat sports history, maybe in sports history. But as a single fight, definitely hell yeah. Because the one prior to that was the Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather fight, and Mayweather was obviously in both of them, so smart fucking guy there. But this is a fight that's going to generate potentially $1 billion with a B dollars, which is fucking insane. Floyd's due to clear between 150 and 200 million dollars. Conor McGregor's due to clear 100 to 150, no, 100 to 140 million dollars, and UFC gets a cut of McGregor's portion, which is like a $40 million cut or something like that, and plus endorsements, which is on the side of all that shit, which is sick. Did you guys see like all the Paulie Malignaggi like footage that came out and stuff like that leaked out, that Paulie's saying is like cropped? And it was funny. He was on a podcast and he was talking about it. He was like, yo, these motherfuckers, I gotta give it to them. That's some really, really high level Hollywood editing shit that they did with that footage. Because Paulie did come out and say after sparring with Conor, because he, for those of you that don't know, he joined Conor's camp and he was brought in as a sparring partner, and he pretty much sparred twice and wound up leaving like disgruntled. And long story short, Conor's side is saying that Conor just like fucked him up for 12 rounds and that they had no intentions of keeping him on anyway, and they just wanted to bring him on to beat him up, because Paulie was one of the early talkers of shit against Conor McGregor before the fight was even announced as a real fight. And Paulie thought that he was being brought on as a legit sparring partner, and he was pissed when he found out that technically he wasn't. And he got off a flight and straight to boxing right away or something like that, and caught him off guard and did a lot of like, Conor supposedly did some dirty tricks, which I did kind of see it was a cut video. You could definitely tell that it was cut like sequence to sequence, like, and according to Paulie, this I can't confirm nor deny, but according to Paulie, it was literally different rounds that were like put together and released. But so it wasn't even like the different sequence within the same round. But there's, and boxers always talk about this, that there are some dirty tricks and stuff that you could get away with if you know how to do them, and supposedly this was one of them. And the way Paulie describes it, he gets hit with a clean hit from Conor and stumbles him a little bit, but then Conor like pushes him down, like by grabbing like the back of his neck. He pushes him down, and as he's pushing him, throws another punch. And that video that's out where it shows Conor technically like dropping Paulie Malignaggi attributes it more to that push, more so than to a punch. And Paulie says that Conor won some rounds and he won other rounds, and that he wants them to just release like the footage of the entire sparring session. And they UFC supposedly said that they will, but after the Mayweather fight. And yeah, it's he said, she said type of thing. The clips don't look good, to the naked eye for like Paulie's argument and stuff like that. Paulie looks like he got caught a bunch of times and he got fucked up, or at least caught with some good combinations and stuff like that, which, plays to the whole argument that Conor, can't box and he's going to get washed. Paulie is a world-class fighter or boxer. He's retired and not in the same shape, obviously, but he was a world champion. He's not just some Joe Schmo at the local boxing gym. And Conor, at the very least, was able to hit him with some combinations and stuff like that. So it shows promise for Conor's side. But the question is, can Conor do anything against the greatest defensive boxer of all time? I'm torn, because you have the people that say he has no shot and people that say he has a very good shot of quote unquote knocking Mayweather out within 4 rounds, or the people that say he will literally not get touched for 12 rounds. He won't be able to touch Mayweather with a punch. There's people that literally have said that, and others that say that Mayweather is going to knock him out. They're literally arguing over the same point, and I can see that same point being used on both sides, which is Conor hasn't boxed. He's not a boxer. This is his first professional boxing match or bout. But he is a striker, obviously, or known for his striking in the UFC. But it's not within the confines of the sweet science of boxing. It's not within those rules. He strikes outside of those rules. He implements some of those rules in his MMA fighting, but not all of them, and he's not confined to them. And he can use kicks to set up punches and elbows and certain feints that would only work in MMA, etc. So the question is his style going to be so unorthodox that Mayweather can't download and interpret and understand his style to the point where he can do his wizardry of shucking and jiving and dodging all of his punches? Is his style going to be so unorthodox that Mayweather's just not going to know or understand or be able to maneuver, which will then obviously cause him to get caught and knocked out by Conor McGregor? Or is the fact that he's so unorthodox and not within the confines of the rules of the sweet science against the master of that sweet science, is he going to get so schooled because he's going to be like a fish out of water type of I don't know what I'm doing type of thing? So this guy that knows what he's doing is going to school the shit out of me. I don't know. But the answer to that question will be answered August 26th. Well, I'm going to be in Caroline's on Broadway watching Russell Peters tell jokes and missing the fight, but we'll see it after. And I know it's going to be entertaining, at least, and I know a lot of motherfuckers are going to tune in. I will be very surprised if this fight does not break records, but we'll see what happens. And that's it, folks. That's all I got for you guys and